This claw is being clawed by the claw, and I'm not using Claude to claw the claw. It's all running local. Wow, that's incredible. That's like probably one of the most amazing intros that I've ever... So this is running SuperClaw, Intel SuperClaw, which is like an agent harness assistant thing, which is hooked up to a local AI and can also be hooked up to our quad Intel B70 system. We first saw this at Computex, but it is helping me install a kernel module on the MSI Claw 8 AI EX. This is a Panther Lake system that we took a look at previously. So what has happened is Valve and MSI have released a Linux driver for the RGB for the controls. And so just for fun, I said, hey, wouldn't it be fun to take Intel's SuperClaw AI assistant thing for a spin and give it a problem? And so the problem was, hey, this thing is running Linux and I'm running kernel 7.1, so it's an older version of the kernel than what they're targeting. Why don't you take a look at the source code for this and the driver that Valve released for controlling the RGB and see if you can get it up and running on the MSI Claw 8. And so the agent is helping me do that, which is awesome. What a weird future we're inching towards at kind of an alarming rate. So wait a minute. What's happening here? Intel SuperClaw, which is like kind of an agent harness thing. It's like, I know it's AI stuff, but the future's coming really fast. SuperClaw it's a sandbox application. It's a demonstrator application. There's a lot that it will need to do to actually be useful. We are at the 10-print Hello World era of computing. Most of you are probably too young to understand. That was like, okay, the original Apple I with BASIC, that was like the Hello World program, like the first computer program on something that wasn't even really a computer by any kind of like modern or even ancient standards. Yet we're at the Hello World stage for a lot of this. And in a lot of ways, Intel SuperClaw is at the Hello World stage. At the same time, I just did a video on like the bleeding edge with NVIDIA and like what NVIDIA is leaning into in the enterprise. And part of that they're leaning into is a kind of flywheel for data collection and figuring out which model to run and that sort of stuff. And what I mean by that is that you don't, boil an ocean in order to help somebody with their algebra homework. And these AI models are so sophisticated now, they use so much energy and they're so complicated that most of the time, most problems that they could actually help with, you don't need that level of sophistication. And so a lot of the cloud providers are working on a way to say, okay, this request is not really that complicated. Let's give somebody a less sophisticated model. And they'll do that in the cloud. It costs them less money. They're doing it in a way that's transparent to you, so they save money. SuperClaw, one of the features in it is a model router. That's what that's called, is routing to the appropriate model for your thing. And it's very nascent in terms of, like, it's kind of brand new. And so at a very small scale, on a mini PC, this kind of thing is also reachable in SuperClaw. I mean, as far as that goes, AMD Lemonade also has functionality like this, although it's implemented a little differently. But SuperClaw is interesting because it's designed to give you kind of that toe in the water experience. It'll let you sandbox a project. You can create a project. You can talk to an LLM about it, and you can talk to an LLM about your files. But it can run some of the AI locally, which is guaranteed not to be anywhere near as powerful as what you can run in the cloud. But you can also hook up cloud providers. Now, sure, Anthropic and OpenAI, you can hook that up and have frontier class models. You can hook up OpenRouter and pick other models, and you can have kind of an in-between. And so just for giggles, I said, hey, this driver was just published by the folks from Valve, and I want to use it. I want to be on the bleeding edge. And normally, it's kind of annoying. Like, I would do it manually. I would download a thing and do some stuff and compile things, and then things wouldn't be exactly right, and I'd have to figure it out. But I can just turn this thing loose. It's like this thing, here's how you connect to it over the network. I had to set up an SSH key and do some other things. But then SuperClaw can look at it and figure it out. And it's really not even necessarily local AI. Like, local AI and local stuff here can really be kind of supervising a cloud model. And running stuff. And there's a lot of rough edges here. It runs on at least part of it runs on the Windows subsystem for Linux. And so it's kind of this unholy mess of Windows application and Linux componentry and that sort of stuff. But the Intel team has done a good job putting this together to give you kind of a toe in the water for what the future might be for helping you with these kinds of things. Now, you can also use it to help you compose email, and you can, just the most mundane pedestrian things. And that kind of stuff actually runs fairly well. I'm using our Asus NUC. This is the NUC Pro 16. This has 64 gigs of memory. I'm using 47 gigabytes of memory in order to do these kinds of tasks, which is a lot. And it's definitely not frontier model until it hits the cloud connection. And then, it's super frontier model. But the local model and the cloud model working together through that router is here on a mini PC on your desktop. It's a simpler version of what's going on in the enterprise, but there's a lot of parallel work happening here for these things. And cloud providers are going to do the same thing, because it's in the cloud provider's best interest to not boil an ocean answering basic questions for you either. They're going to charge you like they're boiling an ocean, but they're not actually boiling an ocean in order to figure out what it is that that you've asked for. It's like, today we're going to solve the Riemann hypothesis. And it's like, well, fire up the boilers, because we got oceans. P is equal to NP. Wow. And so like the model router can say, I don't have any hope of solving P is equal to NP or the Riemann hypothesis or whatever. And it can shunt that off to the cloud. For less obvious queries, it's not even going to do an amazing job deciding if it should be local or remote. But you can control that in the UI, and you can kind of get used to some of these kinds of things as a fun experiment. It's not yet a productivity multiplier for a lot of people, I think, but for some people that learn the tooling and sort of learn the things, it can be a productivity multiplier. It can help you if you really know what you want. And I love this for programming too, like turning it loose on programming tasks. If you are an experienced programmer and you look at the output, it is god awful. It is just like AI slop is an accurate way to describe it. And yet it is light years ahead of where it was even a year ago or 2 years ago, especially. The really magical thing happens though, if you use a harness like this and you set up a bunch of skills and you tell the agents, these are the coding standards. This is how the project should be organized. These are the rules you should never violate. And so the frontier model, and I'm talking even about Anthropic and OpenAI. If you just turn those models loose, the output is nowhere near as good as if you give it a bunch of rules to follow. And so you can be the most cutthroat, awful, micromanaging dictator manager with all these skills telling it exactly how you want it. And there's no shame, there's no interpersonal friction from that kind of stuff. And then you actually will get a result that fits with that. And it is suddenly much less AI slop and much more impressive for those kinds of tasks, again, that the model understands and this kind of thing. And some of that functionality, a good deal of that functionality, is reachable through SuperClaw, which is a lot of fun. Now, I've also got a quad Intel B70 system here. Now, that is a lot more AI horsepower than I have in this AI mini PC, and I can have a graduated response. I can use this entirely local on the mini PC for some basic tasks, like Qwen 3.8 and like a Q4 quant. It's not the state-of-the-art version of Qwen 3.8, but it's a perfectly serviceable version of Qwen 3.8 that is reachable from mini PCs in general. Intel has Qwen 3 Coder, an older model available through SuperClaw. Intel's got more work to do on SuperClaw, but I don't want to discourage them because this is, I think, the kind of thing that makes experiencing the future more accessible to a lot of people, but they're going to need more and more current models running on that. And Intel's running the Int4 version of Qwen 3.8 already on the B70s is a fabulous experience. And so running it here, running it on the B70 system, that's a lot of fun. Running this on the B70 system plus the cloud really does feel like the future, especially if you can combine it with those skills. You see, one thing a lot of people don't understand is that if you've been working in the industry for a long time, there has never been enough labor. And if this is a labor augmentation tool or a labor multiplication tool, then that's why it's easy to be excited about it, because it's like, oh, did I have 5 hours to burn? Okay, it wouldn't take 5 hours, but did I have a bunch of hours to burn wanting to just take the RGB controls for a spin? Not really. But could I turn this thing loose with it? And I really wouldn't care too much if it screwed up badly and I had to re-image my MSI Claw 8 EX AI. No, that would be fine. And so, and I won't even have to worry about that with just a little bit more supervision with another harness and controls and security aspects and that sort of thing. Turnstone. Then I can feel more confident turning this thing loose, even though it doesn't really, maybe can't 100% be trusted to be completely on its own doing things. Like a competent junior programmer or intern. It's like, they're pretty good. Don't turn them loose yet. And so when I say there has never been enough labor, I mean that there has never been enough hours in the day. Like, we have to carefully structure the project and pick and choose our battles. And you have, burn down lists and Kanban and all of this structure around the project for the computer scientists and the people that have to do the testing. And before, in the before times when a developer wasn't expected to be a full stack developer, you would have folks working on documentation and unit tests and integration tests, or maybe not, because there wasn't enough labor. And now there really is a labor multiplier, and you have a helper that can help you do the tests if you understand what you want out of a test and can articulate it. Now, management, everybody that works in this and has a career more than 5 years old, when I say this, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Management very often cannot articulate what it is exactly they need or what the rules are that you're meant to follow. A lot of the time, the really successful projects depend on the technical people in the organization understanding exactly where the bodies are buried and exactly what needs to happen with the project, and management also understanding the pain points from management's point of view, but also trusting their technical people enough to get the technical aspects executed. The projects that go disastrously wrong are the projects where management is, I have a clear vision of what I need. I just need a technical person to carry it out. And it's very often the case that when you go to the nth degree understanding the underlying constraints and the underlying systems, that there are a lot of hidden variables and hidden dependencies that the executives have not cared to put in the effort to really understand. And for them, this is also a force multiplier for that level of willful ignorance, let's say. I think these will be self-correcting problems in fairly short order. Probably. And that's one of the major flies in the ointment from my perspective. But as a force multiplier, turning this thing loose and getting this thing to do my kernel update, kind of fun. Anyway, that's enough rambling for this one. I'm Willis Level 1. Yeah, SuperClaw, clawing the claw. Like, that wasn't even planned. The claw is clawing the claw. How about that? Anyway, I'm Willis Level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the Level 1 forums.